Hello, my name is Jason Reichl, and you're listening to Risk Management Brick by Brick. I'm fascinated with people who are helping build and maintain the physical world around us. On each episode of this podcast, we'll dive in with a risk manager, speak to them about how technology plays a role in this process.
Hello, I'm Jason Reichl with Risk Management Brick by Brick. We're live at IAPA 2025. Today we got Annie Quaile, an entertainment producer and event manager with over 2 decades designing experiences, events, all that. But, really what I want to ask about and the things I'm interested about is, how do you design for human behavior without killing the magic?
I would say what started me on the risk management safety path was experiencing things early in my career that shouldn't have happened the way that they were happening, and not having the voice to stand up and speak up and say, this isn't okay. Seeing where issues were going to arise. And when I did speak up, people didn't listen. And that continued to evolve through my career. The safety part really, I think, took a added interest after Pulse, and the nightclub shooting here in Orlando, and how closely connected I felt, not only with my community, but my connection with a lot of the people that would often frequent that.
Yeah.
And the frustration on my side of just the fact that I know what went wrong, and I know how things could have been different, and that it's just a matter of having a conversation.
Yeah.
My other side of my life is as a trained emergency responder. And so that side of learning about what to do in a critical situation has helped really frame a lot of what my philosophy is when it comes to safety at events.
For operators listening, what's the biggest human behavior risk in live events, like movement patterns, emotional surges, crowd misreads?
Yeah, I mean, I would say all of those. But I do think what it comes down to is if you're cognizant about movement patterns and the way that humans think and their behaviors, that helps to mitigate a lot of the other issues. Very early on in my life, I would just sit on benches and watch people. And that's where I really started to pay attention to how everyone kind of does the same thing the same way. So even just going into a facility, let's say going into a theme park, sit on a bench for 15 minutes and watch the same thing happen over and over again, regardless of who the person is, what their background is, their family makeup or whatever, you'll see that there's common behaviors that happen.
Yeah, sometimes safety and creative are like oil and vinegar, right?
Yep.
So how do you support the creative without, and protect the flow and all that stuff? How does that work? How do you position yourself there?
For me particularly, it's relationship management and really building rapport with the people that I'm working with. It helps that I've been on both sides of it. So I think the way that both the promoter and the event, people think, and I also think on the safety side of it. But my goal is never to mitigate the fun or mitigate the situation that they want to do. It's a matter of, let's look at this as how we can keep this as safe as possible. And so trying to be in the room as much as possible when conversations are happening, sending up a red flag early and saying, hey, here's my concern with this. How could we still make this happen, but pivot it slightly? Or may I make a suggestion as to how we can do this still effectively, but manage it in a way that's going to be less risky for us?
So it's more like an order of operation. If you miss the order of operation, then it can increase the cost. But if you kind of line it up properly, then it can maybe even reduce spend in a lot of ways.
Yeah, if you're planning early, you're accommodating for your needs. If you're waiting until late in the game and you realize that you need security and safety and support, now you're paying probably an outside service to come in at a very expensive cost per head.
Bring us a moment where smart planning kept a situation from escalating. What was the trigger and what intervention worked?
There's an event that I've worked recently that's up near Atlanta. The first year that I helped support it, I noticed that there was a lot of risks involved in it. There was access points that were limited. There was restrictions for people with accessibility. There was a situation where if somebody were, say, an active shooter or something like that was going to come into the venue, it'd be very easy to be able to impact a lot of people in a very short amount of time. And so I had conversations. I spoke up with people that I felt I was less than qualified to speak up to, but said, hey, here's the things that I'm noticing. If this year, while there's still a lot of opportunities that they have, they made some pretty significant changes. They added 3 additional access points. They made some considerations for accessibility for people with wheelchairs and strollers and things like that.
So let's play a game of risky or too risky.
Okay.
Opening doors before staff are in position, risky or too risky?
Too risky.
Why?
Well, staff are your safety, your line of defense. Astroworld is a great example of that. They didn't have enough people in the right places. People stormed the gates. From the start of that event, it was a disaster.
It was wrong.
And it only spiraled from there.
So we rely solely on AI-based crowd density predictions versus behavioral predictions, or actually going there. Risky or too risky to rely on modeled out data versus seeing the place yourself?
I don't think it's too risky. I do think you still need to lean on some of those that data, but the data is coming from research that we've already done. We've seen some really great information that's out there, and it's pretty reliable. But I think we also need to recognize that we're still in the early stages of AI, and a human needs to take a look at that data and say, does this make sense?
I agree with you. Allowing performers to improvise movement paths in tight spaces.
Too risky.
Too risky.
Yeah.
Is that something that often people want to be able to do, is move around freely in space? Is that something you have to educate people on?
Yeah.
I imagine as an improviser, that would be annoying to me. So
yeah, I mean, yes, I think you can kind of preempt some of that, and you can also kind of anticipate what they're going to want to do. I mean, watch a video of what they've done before, right? But in general, having them want to move around or be free to do things creates a lot of issues, not only on a stage, because of the way you might need to build out a stage, but if they want to go out in the crowd, now you've got somebody that a lot of people want to touch and hang out with and whatever, and that's putting them at risk, which is putting our security at risk, which is putting our staff at risk, which is putting our attendees at risk. So it's a spiral.
As a previous rock musician, that's a real thing where people are like, you can't go to the crowd. I'm like, that's what I do. How, I'm not allowed to do that anymore. Running a show during lightning with only a verbal warning system.
Risky.
Have you done it? Have you been in extreme weather situations?
I've been in some pretty bad weather situations where we've had to shut things down. Actually, my very first job as an event manager was at Wet 'n Wild. May it rest in peace. It's been torn down. It's now Volcano Bay, basically. If you've ever been in that park, or for anybody that's listening that's been in that park, there's nowhere to go and hide when you're in a water park. Maybe the newer one I've been in, Volcano Bay, is probably a little bit better. But we used to have to shut a lot down because of that. And you just had to wait for it to pass. I remember summer nights events where our very large, I guess they're
metal structures,
umbrellas were flying through the air like they were toothpicks. And it was like, oh, this is not safe. Sadly, I think we live in a lot more fear today than we did in the past. So I do think that our customers demand more of it and are looking for it. And so I think that forces us to be more thoughtful about it.
For operators flying home from IAPA, what's the Monday morning action plan that meaningfully improves crowd safety without slowing operations?
They're not doing it already. Their safety person should be in every conversation, even if they don't think they need to be. It's the simple conversations of letting people know this is what our plan is, this is why we're doing it. It's not just about we're going to do this, but why we're doing it, to help them understand that context so that they have the strength and foresight to be able to say, okay, something's not right here, or can I ask this question because I think this might be a concern.
What's crazy about all of that is, in a world where we have AI and we have all this stuff, really it still comes down to human communication.
Absolutely.
And making sure that is the basis of what everything else is based on.
Risk Management Brick by Brick is brought to you by TrustLayer. Find out how TrustLayer manages risk so that the people can build the physical world around us. Head over to TrustLayer.io. And then make sure to subscribe to Risk Management Brick by Brick on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. On behalf of the TrustLayer team, thank you for listening.